Hey, good evening, and thank you for joining us on the Scabbard tonight. Tonight we're talking about playing the hated Bruins, and our first foray against the Bruins this season. And they're every bit the juggernaut they were last season, so this is going to be an interesting ride tonight. And we'll also talk about what happened in that Pittsburgh game. That was absolutely awful. Hey, Jasper, how you doing, sir? Good. Thank you for joining us tonight. So, yeah, so news tonight. The stat of the night is that it is Kyle Okposo's 1,000th game of his career, probably 3 or 4 years ago, I don't know that he would have gotten to this because he had been so injured his first few years in Buffalo, suffering a massive concussion his first season, the end of his first season that kept him out much of the subsequent season, but has really kind of carved out a nice niche for himself on the fourth line with Zemgus Girgensons and either Peyton Krebs or yes, I hate the Bruins. Sorry. I know I've got some Bruins fans. My friend Dan, who I helped win money last week, is a Bruins fan. Um, but they're hated because they're so good right now. And we're I still kind of blame the Bruins for the start of the downfall of the Sabres franchise when Lucic hit Ryan Miller and there was no response, and it was just kind of everything snowballed from there and mismanagement, all that fun stuff. So yes, there will be some hard feelings about the Boston Bruins going forward until the Sabres win the Stanley Cup and probably beyond that. Just like Toronto, we're division rivals, so but yeah, Kyle Poso putting together it's a solid career. The Bruins aren't good when it counts. Yeah, that was a bit of an ouch last season, having that kind of a season. Although this season they are picking up where they left off at least in the regular season, and they're kind of suffering what Toronto is going through. It's the whole I don't care how good your team is in the regular season. I want to make sure that your team is good in the postseason because that is where that's where the rubber meets the road, and you want to make sure that all that effort, all that top play is rewarded with a Stanley Cup. Now they did get a Stanley Cup back in the early 2010s, so they had their Stanley Cup fairly recently, but I you think with the lineup, losing Krejci and their top 2 centers off of the team last year retired. So, you would think that there would be a drop off and your top 2 centers are like Pavel Zacha and, can't even we'll look at the lines here in a moment, but, Pavel Zacha and Charlie Coyle. Um, you know, if you told me that this team would get out to a 12-1-2 start, I would have laughed at you. I'd have been like, "No, not with the centers that they're gonna be running out there." Uh, Zaka is decent, but I would never have put him on I'm trying to get the spread for tonight. I believe it's 1 and, Sabres are giving 1 a goal and a half, yeah. So, uh, I I w I would have expected a drop up, but we're not seeing that so far. So, uh all right, so some news. Alex Tuck is still out. Granado says that Tuck is close. He's made progress from his injury, but it's been a little bit slower than anticipated. So he's not out, not in tonight. At least the last check, he's not in the lineup tonight. But he does look like he will be going in Winnipeg. So getting Alex Tuck back is important. He had been really heating up as towards the time he got injured. He had that really slow start, and then he really started heating up. Yesterday we had an interview with Don Granado where he talked about the issue with Matt Savoy and why he was sent down so suddenly. Um, so he said it was a victim of the roster with Matthias Samuelson coming back and not being enough roster spots for him. it still didn't adequately explain to me the reason why he only got 3 minutes and 55 seconds in the game against Minnesota. Um, Granato said that he didn't feel comfortable throwing him out over the boards in a tight game. Well, the NHL is full of tight games. If you weren't comfortable with him playing in a, intra-conference game, or I'm sorry, interconference game, um, why was he in the lineup to begin with? If you're not comfortable with putting him over the boards, now I'm not demanding that he plays 25 minutes a night, but more than 3 minutes and 55 seconds, that was just, to me, that was completely mismanaged, and it's one of those things that can really nail a kid's confidence. I mean, Savoy's a phenomenally talented kid, and I think his talent's being wasted in the Western Hockey League, but the way the rules are, the Canadian Hockey League has first dibs on these kids until, the season after they turn 20. So, he turns 20 on January 1st, but he can't, it's not like he could pack up and leave, go to the AHL on January 1st. So, good news is that he doesn't turn 20 until January 1st. That means he can play in the World Juniors. We're gonna see him play for Canada, um, and then, whenever Wenatchee's season ends is, he'll sign a professional tryout with he's signed to a contract for the Sabres, so he'll move to, Rochester, depending on where they're at in their season, if they're still playing hockey at that point, um, and play with the Rochester Americans. I don't think that, I don't think this was handled well, and then he also pretty much flat out admitted that, they're not gonna hold, Benson to the same standard, that Benson, did a whole lot more. I think if Matt Savoy didn't get injured in that rookie camp, that, Savoy would have probably challenged for that spot that Benson ended up getting. Benson had a phenomenal, rookie camp and training camp, so, I mean, he earned his spot, but it's just curious that, a guy that was drafted a year ahead of him, and I think a lot of Buffalo fans and scouts and people will tell you that Savoy is the real deal, um, are just kinda confused by the whole matter. So, but for now, the case is closed on Matt Savoy. He is back in Wenatchee. He'll play for the WHL, and then, go to the Canadian junior camp to make the team. He did make the team last year, so that's something to watch. But I think a guy with, 3 minutes and 55 seconds of, NHL time has a little bit of a leg up on, some of these kids, and plus he had the, 6 games in the AHL. All right, so what happened in that Pittsburgh game? An absolute tire fire of a game. Again, uh, I feel like a broken record with this. Faceoffs continue to be an issue with this team. Losing 30 of 47 draws, like 68% for the Penguins. Their special teams were awful. They were over 2 on the power play. They, and just could not get into the zone to set up. Um, uh, there was no pressure in the middle of ice. Everything's to the board. So when they actually did get any zone time, it really wasn't any threats down the middle. And most of their offensive chances, they got a ton of shots. So I think they outshot the Pittsburgh Penguins, but everything was kind of a one and done. There wasn't like sustained pressure, second and third chances to try and bury one past Tristan Jari. And then that first goal was kind of killer against Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. It was, last minute, which is always a bad goal, and the way it went in off of, it was from below the goal line and just kind of banked in off of his head, was just, I mean, it was, and having to bring it into the zone. And if you're having problems bringing it into the zone, and they're just firing it down the ice, that there's no benefit to the power play for the Sabres at this point. So they've got to be able to figure this out, whether it is figuring out how to get into the zone, so that when you do lose a draw, you're not going to spend, 50 seconds of a power play just trying to get into the zone, or figure out the face off so that you start the puck with possession, start the power play with possession, and you get chances. So, yeah, it was just a very tough game, and I, uh, being honest here, I didn't get a chance to watch the game live. I will say, NHL, it is 2023. Um, can we stop this whole thing about? I mean, if you're buying a package for hockey coverage throughout the country because you don't live in the same city as your team, can we stop this whole blackouts? Because Pittsburgh's, the streaming services that I have do not have AT&T Sportsnet for Pittsburgh's games, but they block out any Pittsburgh games and any Columbus games for some damned odd reason because I'm further from Columbus than I am from Pittsburgh. Um, but yeah, it's 2023. Let's stop the whole blackout stuff. If you're buying a TV package that has NHL games on it, that should be good enough to be able to watch the game and watch the broadcast that you want to watch. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. So, but yeah, that's I didn't get a chance to watch it live. I watched some of the quote unquote highlights of the game. It wasn't much highlights in that game at all, but um, yeah, it was a tough game. Even from the highlights that I watched, it was a tough game to to watch. And it doesn't get any easier because you're facing Boston at home, who's a tough out. And then for the most part of the rest of the month, you're on the road. You're going to Winnipeg. You're going, um, I can't remember who all they're playing on the road, but I think 7 more games the rest of the month, and they've got 6 of them on the road. And then the only home game they've got is the day after Thanksgiving at home against the Penguins. So maybe they've got something to prove against the Penguins. But we've seen with the Sabres at home, they've been awful. So um, yeah, the TV packages are never as true as the ads say they are, that you can watch your out of market games. You can't. You can't, especially if I'm 3 hours from Pittsburgh. It's not like I'm in Pittsburgh. Because if it was in I was in Pittsburgh, it'd be a lot easier for me to watch the game. Um, and it makes a little bit more sense. Like when I was in DC, I was watching the DC broadcast for the Sabres game, and to an extent, I still do because they do have the blackout, but at least Monumental is covered here in the local TV packages. So, all right, tonight's game is the Boston Bruins, the hated Bruins. They're 12-1-2, leading the Atlantic Division and second most points in the NHL behind the Vegas Golden Knights. Um, David Pastrnak leads the team in goals, assists, and points. 11 goals, 10 assists, and 21 points for the Bruins. But the real story is both Jeremy Swayman and Linus Olmark. They are playing phenomenal hockey, especially Jeremy Swayman. I think we're getting a little bit of a break in that Olmark is starting tonight. But at least that was what the last report was, that Olmark was starting this game. Um, but Allmark has also had our number every time he played us. So um, it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't with his team. But Swayman's got like a 940 save percentage and sub 2 goals against average. So a little bit of a break. Um, so yeah, I mean the Bruins are doing what they do. They're getting off to as hot of a start. Although it took them, I mean, a lot longer to actually lose a game in regulation last season, but still, hot start. They're leading the Atlantic Division, leading the Eastern Conference at this point. So, although the Rangers are only 1 point behind them, so it's a little bit more competitive this season than it was last season because the Bruins just kind of ran away with everything, and everything was done and dusted before Christmas. So. Um, Swayman almost got into a fight in Montreal. Hey, I love it when goalies fight, man. All right, our Bruins projected lines from Fluto Shinzawa, I believe the one of the beat reporters for the Bruins. Um, it is first line Brad Marchand, hated Brad Marchand, uh, Pavel Zacha, and David Pastrnak. James Van Riemsdyk, who came over from Philadelphia in the offseason with Charlie Coyle and Trent Frederick. Dan Heinen with, is that Michael Poitras, I believe, and Jake DeBrusk and Jeremy Lauko. Can't remember what Beecher's first name is. And I think it was Oscar Steen, maybe. Anyway, it's a fourth line. Who cares? Anyway, Bruins defensive pairings, Lowry with McAvoy. I'd never heard of this dude before, but must be good. If I know they're having injury issues on the back end. There's a couple guys out that normally start, um, but must be semi decent if he's starting the first pair. Hampus Lindholm and Brandon Carlo. Fortbert and Shattenkirk on the third pair. So all three pairs are semi decent. Um, and as I mentioned, Linus Olmark starting the net, Swayman backing up, and your scratches for the Bruins: Lucic day to day, Grizzlick day to day, and Geeky on the IR. I hate Brad Marchand. Even the stuff he did against the Toronto Maple Leafs earlier this season with the defenseman there, the slew fit that he did and didn't get. There wasn't any response from the Toronto Maple Leafs, and that was dirty. I'm not a fan of Brad Marchand. All right. Buffalo Sabres forward lines per Heather Engel. There is some question. Granado was asked today whether he would go 11-7 again. He said he doubts that he'll do 11-7, but there is a forward that, or one of their guys, is under the weather. So that's kind of a game time decision. But if it is, 12-6, Skinner, Thompson, Cousins, Greenway, Middlestat, Paterka, Gergenson's Jost Okposo playing in his 1,000th game, and then Olafson, Krebs, and Rusek. Uh, I we'll get into this because there's some audio they're going to play from Don Granado here in a minute. Uh, Sabres defensive pairing: Darlene, Samuelson, Power, Yoki Haru, Clifton, Eric Johnson, Ryan Johnson appears to be a scratch tonight. But if there is an 11-7 configuration, then Johnson will probably draw back in. Devin Levi is your starter tonight. I don't think Luukkonen played horribly on. I mean, there was one goal, the second goal that Pittsburgh scored, which I called that again. Drew O'Connor had not scored all season. I said, you know what? Watch out for Drew O'Connor. He lit us up in preseason, and sure enough, he scored second goal of the game for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Um, so if you're playing those uh, pick to score anytime uh, parlays or whatever the bets of whatever sort, um, I'll try and pick out a couple players here in a minute of who I think will score tonight. Let's see. Yeah, let's talk about some of the scratches. I didn't put Johnson on here because I'm not really sure. But Bryson, healthy scratch, Tuck day to day, Eric Comrie on the IR, Quid on the long term IR, Benson day to day, although Benson is skating. um, I think they're waiting for a couple of practices before they throw him back out there. Um, but today during the practice, the post practice interview, Don Granado was asked about, what he discussed with Kyle Okposo, who's celebrating his 1,000th game. He mentioned they had talked the other day about, what's going right and what's going wrong with the team and what they need to do to get better. And here's a little bit of audio.
Yeah, a little more pace. Simple as that. Play with more pace, and we'll get there. When you turn your attention to certain things you want to work on, that compromises just a real go mentality, a real fearless, aggressive mentality, and that's when we're at our best. And there's certain things we've had to put in front of our guys, and we have, and our guys have responded to those and become better. What happens is you lose a little bit of your original self when you do that, and when you get back to your game, you're more experienced as a result, and that's kind of been the process for us. But Kyle and I have talked about that a lot. We know that we've done some work that we needed to do. We'll continue to do that, but at some point we've got to feel at ease enough and fearless enough to just go and play with the pace that we feel we have the skill to execute at. And tonight is another night, to push toward that initiative, and we're very excited about that.
Yeah, so pushing the pace, um, we've heard quite a bit this season whenever there's been a bad outcome for the Sabres of, we need to, be more direct, push the play north and south, all that same thing. One of the things I will note is that it seems like we're, putting in a lineup that isn't our optimal each night. I know that we're trying to get some of these kids some experience. Um, and I don't think Johnson or Benson have played poorly at all. I think Johnson's actually done really well in his time. but we are allowing some guys that should be off this roster to play. Victor Olofsson should be. He played the least of any of the forwards in the game against Pittsburgh. Um, Most of the 2 of the minutes that he had playing was on the power play, which was inept. And really all Olofsson does on the power play is sit at one of the points and fire the puck. Um, if he's not scoring, he's useless, and he's only got 1 point on the season. Um, and there's we've got him listed as being a 4th line winger, so he'll get fewer minutes, have less chance to kind of break out of his slump. Um, why? Why are we trotting him out there continually when we're not trotting out somebody that is performing? Maybe a younger player, or keeping somebody like Tyson Jost in the lineup more than Victor Olofsson. Um, it's to me, it's unconscionable that we continue to trot him out there after several seasons. And look, Victor Olofsson is overplayed any predictions for him. He was a 7th round draft pick, um, like 190 or something like that. No one expected him to make the NHL. He sprouted, and he's done well. I just don't think he is a good fit for the Buffalo Sabres anymore. So whether it's sending him down to the minors, which I'm not sure you're going to get much of a taker for him, or trading him off for, I don't care at this point, prospect pick, um, you know, old bag of hockey pucks. I don't care. Um, right now, Olison's stealing a spot on the roster from someone else. So, um, but I think they're also coaching scared, by doing some of these weird manipulations of the roster and throwing guys out there. That the 11-7 the other night was completely unnecessary, and did not need to happen. And I get that last minute sickness. We can say that. All right, well, 11-7 makes sense on a case by case basis. Not playing the second of back to back. We got lucky with the Toronto game. We did not get lucky with the Pittsburgh game. They looked tired. They didn't look like they had energy at all. And there was no flow because they were playing with, outside of the first line. They were playing with just completely jumbled lines. So um, yeah, just a lot of factors that I think the coaching staff need to be better when it comes to this. Now, am I calling for Granado to get fired? Absolutely not. But they've got to be better about how they construct this roster, how the lines they roll out. Um, I think Granado this season has been way too quick to just throw lines up in the air. Um, let it stick a little bit. Don't do it in the first period. Second period, maybe towards the end. And if there's no flow, okay, let's start blowing things up in the third period. But I think he's gone way too fast on these in-game line changes. So let's see. Today's odds by DraftKings: play responsible. Buffalo's getting a goal and a half. So they predict that Buffalo loses this game. The over under is 6, so they're predicting a low scoring game, which makes sense with both Devin Levi in the nets and Linus Olmark. The Sabres, when they did beat Boston last season in overtime, I think it was a like a 3-2 game. So um, yeah, it makes sense to keep it a low over under and have Boston the favorite in this game. Buffalo coming off of really bad, actually 2 really bad performances, just bailed out by Levi in the Minnesota game, and unable to be bailed out by Ukko-Pekka in that Pittsburgh game. All right, oops, let me get this other scroller off. Our player profile tonight is Tyson Jost, who is playing tonight, which is good. Tyson Jost is a 5'11" winger, or center, I'm sorry, out of St. Albert, Alberta, which I think is the same town that Matt Savoy's from. Remember saying that town the other day. Just 7 years older than Matt Savoy at 25, or 6 years old. Wait a minute. Yeah, 6 years older than Matt Savoy, who's turning 20 this year. Um, but yeah, 25-year-old, 5'11" winger, 194. Kind of a grinder. Well, banger and grinder. He's done well. He's kinda made the rounds. He started his professional career in, Colorado. He was a 10th overall pick in the 2016 NHL draft, uh, playing, from Colorado. Played a couple seasons, for the Colorado Avalanche. Uh, Played in the last season with them was the shortened 2021 season. Um Then, towards the end of that, 22 season, the Avalanche traded Jost to the Minnesota Wild for Nico Sturm. Played for the Wild throughout the rest of the season, and then the next season, the, Sabres acquired him off of waivers from the, Minnesota Wild, and he's been with the Sabres ever since. In, his first full season with the Sabres, he got, 7 goals, 15 assists and 22 points in 59 games. Um, I think he's a serviceable player. I mean, for what you're getting him for the 4th line, I know he's listed as 3rd line tonight. I don't know. I think he's been a very serviceable player, to the Sabres, and, I greatly prefer him on the ice than Victor Olofsson, so let's see. On a date. This is an interesting night. November 14th, 2009. Tyler Ennis got his first NHL goal, and Ryan Miller stopped 29 shots to help the Buffalo Sabres snap the Philadelphia Flyers 5-game winning streak with a 3-2 win in Buffalo. So um, that is this date in hockey history for the Sabres. Let's go to the farm report. For the Rochester Americans, they are 7-3-2, still leading the North Division of the AHL. But they were drubbed by Utica, the New Jersey Devils AHL affiliate, 6-0 on Saturday, revenging the loss on Friday night. They play the first of two in Cleveland, which is the Columbus Blue Jackets AHL franchise, on Thursday and Saturday. So, yeah, Thursday night, if you don't have anything to watch the Amerks. The Jacksonville Icemen are 4-3-1 and fourth in the Eastern Conference South Division of the East Coast Hockey League. He lost to the division leading and undefeated Atlanta Gladiators, Nashville Predators, ECHL affiliate on Saturday. So tomorrow night, if you don't have anything to watch or listen to, you can listen to them play the South Carolina Stingrays that are based out of Charleston, South Carolina, the ECHL club of the Washington Capitals. So that is it for tonight's show. We got looks like 2 minutes till the MSG hockey coverage starts. So go check that out. Watch Marty and Duffer or listen to the WGR pregame stuff. But 7 o'clock puck drop, Boston versus Buffalo. Let's go, Buffalo. Bring home a win. You need it just for the psyche of the entire city of Buffalo after that dumpster fire of a football game last night. Um, because if the Sabres start sinking, then I don't know. There's probably going to be riots in Buffalo. So anyway, thanks for joining us tonight. Our next show for the Scabbard is going to be Friday night at 7 p.m. There's an 8 p.m. puck drop in Winnipeg. We're in the Peg up in Canada. So yeah, Rob Ray said the only good thing about that game is that it's early and it's not going to be like negative 35 degrees outside. So, um, but yeah, off to the Peg. And no, let's not go Bruins. Let's take the night off, Bruins. Do not get the victory. Let's go Buffalo. And thank you for joining us on the Scabbard. I really appreciate it. And we'll see you on Friday night.